next piece is a poem. It is being presented in the category of novice poetry. Jane Pappas will present Captain George by Wilbert Snow.
What would Picasso be without his painting? Or Shakespeare without his writing? When we are barred from our passions, we struggle to find meaning in our lives. Often we struggle to maintain sanity. In Captain George by Wilbert Snow, a young George is barred from something he desperately craves, the sea. Tragically, his misguided but resolute mother hastens the fate she only sought to prevent for him. I give you Captain George by Wilbert Snow. The sea's my enemy, she kept repeating over and over the night her George was born. It washed his father off the Evelyn's deck 3 months ago. It carried out and swamped my brother's boat that took him years to pay for. My sister's man was frozen to the wheel the night the chase went down. And now this boy, whatever comes, must keep clear of the sea. When George was old enough to run away, out of the yard her law had made his world, the sable schooners of the coast-wide fleet, voyaging up and down the busy channel, dropped anchor in his mind. Green wherries, deep with flipping fish, stirred something in his blood that even Mother Love could not subdue. But Mother Love this time was fortified, with years of resolution, and her will had grown, with that austere decision made the midnight he was born, until it could checkmate and circumvent the slightest move he made toward the sea. He toiled at play like other children, and like others born in seaport villages, battened his mind on fishing rods and boats of generous color. Gay toys. But let his mother come upon him, fondling a boat or reeling up a line, and there would stir a venom in her eyes that froze the joy in his. One April day in town with her, wishing through big glass windows, his sharp eyes lit upon a tall red sloop boat, and there held fast, until a neighbor seeing, beckoned to the clerk and whispered, This is for George. Torn as she was, she let him take it home, but never once relenting to let him see or play with it. She kept it in a drawer, under lock and key securely hid, but not secure enough to lock his reverie that wove dream patterns in and through that craft, fantastic and alluring as a poet, in idle hours would weave round Spanish galleons, deep loaded with doubloons. His 14th spring of adolescent whimsies brimming full, he begged her for a wherry with a sail. The other boys went racing round the cove, and on fair days stood out across the harbor, wind in their hair and sunlight on their sails, the buoyant motion of the blossoming waves setting them free. Alone on the shore in gloom, he longed for a boat in vain. His frustrate year drawing to its foggy close, he pled to go to Boston on a lime coaster that shipped a neighbor's boy as cook. Rebuffed once more, he ran off to the city and signed up to join a battle fleet and see the world. She guessed his errand through maternal fear, uncanny and intuitive, made straight her journey to the corner of the street, and so upbraided the recruiting lad that he gave up the papers, not yet dry. That afternoon, as George walked home, his face took on a wild and hunted look. He ground his teeth together as small children do in great distress of sleep. And all that night, sleep that had never treated him unkindly refused to come. The darkening weeks dragged on, autumnal weeks of tossing misery, his laughter fleeing like red maple leaves chased by gray winds. he roamed the shores alone until, before the winter snows had fallen, an unrelenting winter had closed in upon his brain. The turn his mania took left him the captain of a full-rigged ship, pacing the quarterdeck and giving orders. 8 bells! All hands aloft! Come! Speak the ship! Keep off and steer for the evening star! All hands on deck! Furl sail! Pay out that hawser! Snubber up short and warp to the wharf! Keel haul the lazy lout! Enough! Pipe down! Over and over he would keep repeating whatever sea terms he had heard or read of. We wondered where he had never learned so many. The hungry town fastened upon his flight to fill its ditty box of anecdote, then paid him scant attention till his mother, fretful to go at 70 years, stole down to the wharf one night, untied a boat, and in delirium put out to sea, the enemy at last in stranger guise than she or even we could understand. When 30 seasons of shell ice had made night-walking treacherous for nimbler feet, no longer could he lift the little trees that fell across his path. Town gossip led the 3 selectmen to step in and crown the careless irony of his existence with papers that another George had signed, by sending him away to Sailor Snug Harbor. He shook his head until they talked to him about the other captains anchored there, in a quiet harbor full of evening light and all sails furled. They saw his eyes flare up, and, though no word was spoken, knew his gaze had rested on the bright caravels that still were drifting on his mind's Sargasso Sea. His last day at the shack he worked about, boarding up windows, puttering his ear, and banking brush around his old green wherry. At length he nailed a slab across the door, on which he wrote, "Keep out! I'm coming back." Islanders going home on lonely nights, across the harbor, past his fallen shack, say they have seen a light, now green, now red, float like a will-o'-the-wisp above his cabin. Say they have heard a gruff voice on the headland call out, "Ahoy! Keep off, or whither bound?" And those to whom they tell the tale go home, believing silently that George's ghost is keeping faith with that crude sign he nailed across the door so many years ago.